Weight gain is one of the most problematic side effects that we run into. Many medications cause it, and the vast majority of patients are not wanting to gain weight. The mechanism by which medications, psychotropic medications in particular, affect weight is increasing the appetite. The medications do not change your metabolism. Certainly, sometimes we use thyroid hormone as augmentation therapy for depression, and that does affect metabolism. And you could also make the argument that some of the stimulating medications, because they raise heart rate, that there might be increases in metabolism as a consequence of that. But those are minute changes. You're not going to lose weight or gain weight significantly just by changing those parameters. People that exercise, even regular daily strenuous cardiovascular exercise, while it's great for the cardiovascular system as well as the mood, it's got very beneficial effects on mental health. But one piece of pie will wipe out 2 hours of being on the treadmill. So increasing metabolism either through strenuous exercise or by taking medication that increases heart rate, for example, is going to be negligible in terms of changes in weight. Medications that cause weight gain do so because they increase the appetite. And often patients will deny that they're eating any more than they were before, but they in fact are. It's simple math. It's the amount of calories one takes in subtracted from the calories that one expends or that one burns off. And we do see changes in metabolic rate as people approach middle age, and there are hormonal influences that vary even with a person's circadian rhythm. But medications that cause an increased appetite, that increase can be subtle, where patients simply don't realize that they're snacking more or that they're eating larger portions. Many times I've been told by patients who have gained 20 or more pounds that they're not eating any more than usual, but in fact they are, whether they're aware of it or not. And also choices. Some of these medications not only increase a person's appetite for food, but specifically for carbohydrates, starches and sugars, and so there might be subtle changes in a person's dietary choices. Regardless, weight gain can be quite significant on these agents, and there are different mechanisms of action that ultimately the final common pathway in the hypothalamus affects the satiety center. It's the same area of the brain that we see involved when we see obesity in very young children. When you see an obese child, a pre-adolescent, it's blaming the parents is not fair. Certainly, you can do things to keep junk food out of the pantry and to try to monitor and regulate your very young child's intake and to encourage exercise and such. But there are specific genes that will result in individuals who are prone to food addiction and binge eating and overeating, whether or not it's associated with any psychiatric syndrome or a sense of a loss of control or obsessing about food, as in bulimia and binge eating disorder. There is a hypothalamic center, satiety center, and various chemicals will affect that center. And so there are medications that cause weight gain due to their serotonergic properties, including some, but not all, SSRIs, the 5-HT2C receptor subtype. Antihistamines also cause weight gain, blocking H1 receptors, the receptors that we target in cases of seasonal allergies, as opposed to the H2 blockers that are used to reduce acid reflux. And you also see effects on appetite with dopaminergic and noradrenergic agents, dopamine and norepinephrine. Those chemicals are involved in the fight or flight response and the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. And so we tend to see weight loss, particularly with dopamine. And increasing dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that's implicated in reward behavior, including eating, decreases that drive to eat, and it gives individuals with binge eating disorder control over their obsession with food and their addiction to food. But the weight gain can be quite significant. Some individuals are more prone than others. Usually, if there are enough other indications to use a medication that might cause weight gain, then we can simply monitor the situation. And if there's 5 or more pounds of actual weight gain, not water weight, then we can reverse course. Unchecked, I've seen as much as 60 pounds of weight gain over a period of several weeks on medications like Remeron. And so certain medications are notorious for it. Among the SSRIs, which all have the same mechanism of action, there is a differential effect on weight gain. So, for example, we see weight gain with Paxil and Lexapro and Celexa and sometimes Luvox, but we don't see it with Prozac and Zoloft. And in fact, Prozac is actually used in the treatment of bulimia, not with great success, but it can be used to lower anxiety and perhaps to lower the urgency of that particular addiction. Other medications that are prescribed, phentermine is prescribed a good deal, but it often leads to irritability. The same can be said of the stimulants of amphetamines and methylphenidate, Adderall and Ritalin respectively. They dampen the appetite significantly, but can cause irritability or anxiety. The effect of those medications also wanes over time. An individual does develop tolerance. So I always advise my patients that are on those medications that also would like to lose weight to concentrate their efforts on the first few weeks of treatment. Topamax, which is an anticonvulsant that's used as an adjunct agent in the treatment of epilepsy. It's added on to other anticonvulsants to control seizures, and which has been used by psychiatrists as a mood stabilizer with poor results. It's not a good mood stabilizer. It is also a medication that is associated with decreased appetite and weight loss. Problem with it is that it also results in some cognitive side effects, and interestingly enough, it also reduces the sensitivity of the tongue to carbonation in soft drinks. So soft drinks taste flat. That just happens to be a side effect of the fact that it is a medication mostly used by neurologists to reduce seizures by reducing the excitability of neurons. Most of the mood stabilizers cause weight gain, including Depakote and virtually all of the antipsychotic agents, first and second generation. I would say the partial agonists, the third generation of antipsychotic/mood stabilizers, such as Abilify, they are far less likely to cause weight gain. And then again, there are differences within the same class. So even when we look at second generation antipsychotic mood stabilizing agents, you see much more weight gain with Zyprexa and Clozaril than you see with Geodon. It is an effect on the appetite. It can be mitigated by mindful eating, really paying attention to your eating choices, making sure that you're not increasing your carbohydrate intake and avoiding snacking, and portion control, avoiding seconds. Also being mindful about the time of the day that one eats. Some of the sleeping medications that we use in patients who are prone to overeating and to being overweight can exacerbate that condition, because after taking a medication such as Ambien, which is notorious for complex sleep behaviors, the people are actually asleep when they're getting up and doing things, eating often, but they have amnesia for the events and they are sedated. But I do see in individuals with binge eating disorder, for example, binges that occur after they've taken their sleep aid, if they don't go to sleep right away. because it disinhibits them, and they are less concerned about monitoring their intake, and they'll often binge. Weight gain is a significant problem, and I tend to choose antidepressants and other agents that avoid that complication. I recommend that patients weigh themselves once a week in the morning, first thing in the morning, and we really need to check BMI, body mass index, which is a measure of a person's weight relative to their stature. I think that gives us the best indication of their weight status.